Hey guys, so today I'm doing my best books of 2020, and it is pretty late, like it is like mid-February, but to be fair, I did not make this channel until like a couple weeks ago, so I couldn't really do it on time. I'm just gonna go over my best 10 books of 2020. The first book I want to talk about is Always Never Yours, and this is kind of a contemporary romance, and it's about Megan Harper. She wants to become a director, and she wants to get into this really specific school that she's been working hard for. So to do that, she needs an acting requirement, which she's doing now. At the same time, she's kind of trying to find her new next boyfriend because she likes to be in a lot of relationships, but she always tends to be the girl before. So she always tends to get with a guy, like a good guy, like they're good guys, but then after her, they find their relationship, like their person. So she's always the one before, but then in the play, she gets cast as Juliet, the main character, which she wasn't prepared for because she just kind of thought she was gonna have like a small role and then she'd be done, because she didn't really want to do this in the first place. It was a requirement. And then while doing this, she meets this guy, Owen, who is writing a play about Rosalind, who's kind of like the other love interest, the one that like Romeo forgot. And so they end up coming together because she says, I'll help you write your play by showing you like the mindset, because it's basically what she's going through, because she keeps kind of being like the Rosalind and then the next person's the Juliet, even though they both die. So I don't know how good that be, but and he helps her get with one of his friends because she thinks he's like hot. Yeah, so overall this was a really good book, and the romance that evolves is really cute because they like start as friends. And I kind of like when they start as friends because it makes it cuter when they actually get together, because they already know each other and they like already like each other. But yeah, overall it was very good. I'm not going to say I would recommend, because obviously since these are my best books of 2020, I would recommend them all. The next book that I read was Normal People by Sally Rooney. And there was a lot of hype around this book in the time, so I had it, so I decided like to read it, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked the writing style, and I liked how the characters were fleshed out. But I should probably say what it's about first. But it's about Connell and Marianne, and Connell's kind of like the football star of the high school. He's popular, and Marianne's she doesn't like really like fit in that well, and she doesn't really try to fit in. She just kind of like does her own thing, and it just like people think it's weird. Connell's mom works for Marianne's family as the housekeeper, so they start getting a little closer, but Connell wants to keep it a secret because, you know, he still like cares about his reputation, and there's like other stuff. But it kind of just goes through their relationship as they like grow up, and it goes from like high school to like college. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it because I thought their relationship, even though it is very frustrating because you just want them to be happy and everything, but it makes it feel like a lot more real, because they're humans. Based on what they've gone through and kind of their experiences in life, they have their own problems that they needed to work through before they could really get in this relationship. It's just nice to see how they're always kind of drawn together, and I think I might have teared up or cried at the end, so it was pretty good. So the next book I read was Felix Ever After. Basically, this book is about Felix Love, who he's kind of going through a lot in the moment. He's black, queer, and transgender, so that's kind of a lot of stuff to deal with, because obviously that brings a lot of like struggles with it, and he's just kind of trying to work through that. And when in the school puts up all these pictures of him before his transition and posted his dead name. So, and then obviously that's a lot to go through, like, because he's still dealing himself with all this, and with his dad still working on accepting him. So that obviously is very hurtful. They didn't just put up the pictures. They also started sending him like hate messages saying, oh, you're not actually a boy, and you should just like give up because like you're never gonna be boy, stuff like that, which obviously is very hard to hear. So he kind of goes to like revenge. he thinks it's this guy in his class who he kind of used to be friends with. So he makes up a fake Instagram account and kind of catfishes him to try to see if he did it so that he can get revenge on him. So that story kind of follows like that, and it ends up in like a love triangle of some sort. I thought his friendship with Ezra was really nice, and I liked how like supportive and kind of like protective they were he was of Felix and Felix was of him. So they really cared about each other, and you could feel that. Overall, I thought it was very good, and I liked how they kind of like handled all the topics, and I thought they did it in a very good way. Next, I read the 3rd volume of Heartstopper. And actually, because I got Heartstopper 3 or volume 3 for Christmas, and then I was like, why not spend my whole Christmas day rereading all of them? So I started volume 1 and I went back up to 3. And I love these books. Like, they make me smile so much, and they just make me feel so good. Like, look at this art style. Like, look how cute it is. Basically, it starts when Charlie and Nick, they get assigned to this like homeroom / class, and they have to start sitting next to each other, and basically they just start like hanging out and connecting, and Nick asks Charlie to be on the rugby team, so they just like connect more and more. And it's basically just, the first book's more about their friendship developing and like Nick coming to terms with some stuff that he didn't realize about himself. And I just love how they're both such amazing people. Yeah, I feel like overall, all the books, they're so good. Like, they make me smile, and there's a reason I've reread these so many times, because whenever I just need like a pick-me-up, I like read these. I love these books so much, and I'll probably reread all of them when the 4th volume comes out again. So the next book that I read was Second Chance Summer by Morgan Matson. So this book is about this girl, Taylor Edwards, who finds out that her father is going to die. Basically, because of this, they decide to go back to their summer house that they used to spend all their summers with together, but they haven't gone to in a while. They decide, let's go down there, spend one last summer together, and then, connect as a family. But the thing is, they used to go there all the time, but then they just like abruptly kind of left, and they didn't come back. And so she kind of abandoned the friend she had there and her first crush, Henry. So this was a really nice read, and I loved her reconnecting with like her friend and with, Henry, which obviously leads to a little bit more than just friends. And I loved that relationship as well. But most of all, I loved how the family kind of got back together. Like, they were just all their own people, and they just didn't really talk to each other that much anymore. But it was just nice to see them like reconnect. I will warn you that I sobbed at the end of this book. I cried so hard. It is very good, and you will probably cry if you read it, or at least you should tear up at the least. The next book I'm going to talk about is Lovely War. And this book is set in the 1917s during World War I, and it is narrated by Greek gods, primarily Aphrodite. And basically, she is caught with Ares by her husband, Hephaestus. She's caught by her husband, and he kind of is just like, why are you doing this? And she decides to explain the story of 4 different people and 2 like couples. And it's about Hazel and James, who they met each other kind of like at a party while she was like playing the piano, and they danced and they talked and they really connected. But the problem is that James goes off to war. I think it was the next day or the 2 days after. So they don't have a lot of time. But they realize that even though they haven't had that much time together, they do love each other. So they decide to try to make it work, and it kind of shows the growth of their relationship. But then it also talks about Aubrey and Colette. And Aubrey is an African-American musician who's going off to war in this like special regime of like other African-American musicians, so they all kind of like play music. And then he meets Colette, who is a volunteer in the war, and then it shows the growth of their relationship, and It also like interconnects a lot of the characters, so it doesn't feel like you're switching from one story to another because they are all connected, so it doesn't feel like really separated. It just feels kind of like one story. Overall, I thought the Greek mythology aspect added a lot through the narration and like the different gods brought in to show different aspects of the story. So yes, overall, very good. So the next book I read was Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is about Alex and Henry and kind of like their journeys. So Alex is the son of the first woman president of America. Henry was or is the Prince of England. And basically it goes through Alex is kind of not fond of Henry. He kind of sees him as stuck up, annoying, condescending. And then they kind of no, it's more him. It's more him. They kind of get into some trouble, like kind of international thing, and then both families decide they need to do some recon. This is not good. It's a scandal. So they have to go on these publicity things and act like they've been best friends, and it was just, a friendly scuffle gone wrong. It was all in the name of friendship. So it basically shows them having to spend more time together. And you see the moment where it stops being pretend and they really start to connect. And it's very nice to see. It did deal with also, like, obviously some, like, struggling with your sexuality and, like, stuff like that. And overall, it was very good. And I love their growth from, like, nemesis to friendship to, something more. So, yes. And it's also very fun, just light book for the most part because it was just, like, they're all just, like, such fun people to read about. Okay, the next book I'm going to talk about is Where the Crawdads Sing. So, I actually thrifted this book for like $3. Look at that. I was very proud of myself for this one. But, sorry, that's off topic. It's about this town by the marsh, and it mainly follows this one girl named Kaya Clark and kind of her life from like young to old. But at the same, it kind of also switches time periods. Like it switches from the past to the present, where this guy Chase Andrews was killed, and he was kind of a very popular guy in the town, and he was found dead. So it shows his investigation and also Kaya Clark growing up and how her life is. So people call her the Marsh Girl, and it's kind of a rumor about her because she has lived in the marsh her whole life, and she just goes through so much. And she's not what they say she is. She isn't like a wild person. Like she's had to survive, and she's actually very smart and sensitive, and she's gone through so much. But I think it was so good, and it really showed like how human interaction like really like can change people, and how like wanting to feel loved and all that. But I really liked the nature aspect of this. I thought it was so well done, and the writing was really good, and you just really feel for her because she can't rely on her family, and she like just goes through so much throughout the book, and you really root for her and you just want her to do well. And overall, it was very good, and her relationship with Tate, who is this other guy that comes in, I thought was very sweet. And the friendship they built was, I think, one of the lifelines she did need to like other people. She's capable, she can take care of herself, and so she has to let herself interact with other people sometimes, and I thought that was so well done. And I kind of liked the switch of like time periods because you also didn't really know like what happened, so that was like a little mystery added onto it, and you make assumptions throughout the story based on like what keeps happening. So yeah, I would definitely recommend. It was so well written, and I loved so many of the characters, and it was just a really good book. Next, I have Cemetery Boys. I did take off the dust jacket because even though the dust jacket is really nice, like it's not a bad one, I don't really have many books where underneath it looks so pretty, so I just kind of like leave it like that because I think it looks really cool. So this story is about this boy named Yadriel. I always like think like there's so many of these names where I'm like saying them out loud and I haven't really said them out loud. So I'm just like, how is this actually said out loud? Because I think it in my head, but then I say it and I'm like, this sounds weird. It's about this boy named Yadriel, and he's trans. So he transitioned to becoming a boy. And basically his family, they're accepting, but they're not like completely accepting. And they decide that they won't allow him to become a brio, which in their family is basically whenever a boy becomes of age, they like get their weapon and they do this ceremony, which basically means that they're like part of their society and they can like hunt and like release these ghosts, which I'm not gonna get into that aspect because I feel like that is just like kind of fun to explore when you first read the book, so I don't want to like spoil too much of that. But basically he decides he's gonna do it himself. If they're not gonna let him, he's just gonna do it. Someone in their community was murdered and he decides he's gonna find their ghosts and figure out what happened, and maybe then they'll respect him and they'll like let him do the official ceremony. Basically it goes wrong. He ends up like accidentally getting attached or releasing this ghost of one of his old classmates named Julian. But when he releases like Julian, he realizes there is something weird going on and maybe he has some information, so he kind of like keeps with him and they try to figure it out together. And I don't know, I thought it was really nice and I loved how it handled this topic of him coming out as trans. And yes, overall they were accepting, but just those little things like still calling him a she, or like still like, and not really letting him be a boy in their community. Just like I liked how it showed it wasn't extreme discrimination, but it still shows like how little things like that could probably like hurt people a lot. And it just showed how like painful and like taxing it was on Yadriel to kind of like navigate through that, because obviously they weren't being outwardly mean to him and he feels like he can't really be mad at them for that, but he wants to be mad because he's upset. And I don't know, I thought overall I liked the relationship with his friend and with Julian, and I liked how like kind of the whole supernatural aspect, and I liked how that was done. It wasn't like overwhelming because I tend to like more character driven, and I feel like this was really character driven. And I did not see the ending coming at all. The ending, I like cried a little bit. I was not expecting it. So just know that there's a plot twist. But yeah, overall, very good book. The last book I read was called Song of Achilles. This book was definitely the best book I read all year. I love it so much. I recommend it to everyone. This is a book that I recommend. If someone asked me what book should I read, Song of Achilles. Easy. And so basically this is a retelling of the Iliad. So it follows Achilles, but more closely, or you know, it follows Achilles and Patroclus. Patroclus is a young prince who was exiled because he accidentally murdered someone else. And so he has to go to this camp and train. He like doesn't have many friends. He's like a little bit awkward, but Achilles, the young dashing warrior, takes a liking to him and they like grow closer. He decides this is the person I want to be with me. So they grow really close, and it just shows them growing up from like little kids to like men. So basically before this, they were growing closer. They were really forming a relationship. They've been in love the whole time. Who's kidding? They might not have known it, but and then obviously the Battle of Troy comes and they want Achilles' help because he's a famed warrior. He's supposed to be the best. So for his honor, Patroclus doesn't want him to go, but he knows that Achilles has to go because he values his honor. It's one of the most important things to him. So basically he goes, which causes a lot of issues in the long run, but I'm not going to spoil the end because I sobbed for a solid 60 pages. There was just so many emotions, and I just like kept trying to blink my eyes really fast so I could keep reading because I needed to know what happened. The ending, I don't want to say anything about it because it just like most people know the ending because obviously it is based off of another book, like the Iliad, which is pretty famous, but I'm not gonna spoil it just in case you don't. I love the focus on Achilles and Patroclus. It wasn't rushed, it was perfectly timed. You could see it in every moment they shared together, the connection that they had, and yes, they did have fights and yes, they did clash, but it's only because of how much they cared for each other and because they wanted like the best for each other that it happened. So this was the best book I read in 2020, maybe like like for a while. This I would recommend it for sure. And yeah, so those are the best 10 books I read in 2020. If you're still watching, thank you so much. That's like, thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope that you liked the books I talked about, or that you like might want to read some of them, because I honestly love them all so much. No, I hope you enjoyed it. So bye. Thank you for watching.